Hey everybody, Doug here from 2 Plus Tough, and as y'all know, I should put it in writing, every Friday I try to do a hobby hangout with some friends over in the UK, greater European area. Do something in your time zone, and so that's exactly what this is. So right now I'm booting up some music because I completely forgot to beforehand, and we're gonna hang out. We're gonna do a little bit of hobby hang, but with an added twist today because GW unveiled some news, but not really. And so basically this is going to be like a preview review type thing, in addition to just chatting about stuff and things basically. So let me just get my music ready here, and this is really just me getting everything set up, and then you guys can just hop into the comments. You got Apathy getting hello. Perfect. So I am going to be painting. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the article, like the article we're going to talk about today. And we'll go to that now. Let me just make sure that transition worked. Yep, it sure did. Okay, thank you. Yeah, so obviously I can't see your comments right now. But if you don't know, this morning, well, really yesterday on the Facebook page, Games Workshop put up a thing with a square base and said it all comes back around. And we didn't really know what it meant. And so there was a lot of speculation yesterday as far as like, does it mean more time? Does it mean War Master? Does it mean fantasy battles? And so today they unveiled, the article is called Old World, New Warhammer. So Warhammer, the Old World. And so I think the most important part of this article, to be perfectly honest with you, is the first section, which is just, in the deepest dungeons of the Warhammer Studio, the Council of the Wise have convened, ancient forges have been relit, and work has already begun. So far, we've made the logo. Next up, everything else. You get the idea. This is a long way off. Years, more than 2, like 3 or more. Definitely not soon, not as emphasized. And so basically the idea, they recap like how Age of Sigmar came about. And let's see. And yet the old world whispers from ages past with its siren song. We grow misty-eyed at the memory of long-lost heroes and glorious kingdoms laid to ruin of mighty champions whose saga are sung no more. A lot of the moral realms have their roots in the old world, of course. The old world is to Warhammer Age of Sigmar as the Horus Heresy is to Warhammer 40,000, the bedrock of lore from which mortals rose to godhood and legends were forged. And like the Horus Heresy, seeing those mythic heroes in action has an undeniable appeal, as does recreating the glorious armies of a previous epoch. An exciting proposition for hobbyists and gamers alike. And now we have a dedicated team in the Warhammer Studio beginning to work on bringing all the awesome stuff back to tabletop. So, and then it says, like, if you're itching to jump into those things, you can hop into Vermintide or Total War Warhammer, the game series. It's really, really cool. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to vomit out all my thoughts, okay? And then we can have a talk about it. So, first of all, I think the most important thing is, this is cool. This is actually a cool thing. I think, I saw some people already getting, I'm going to go to the downward cam and start painting while I deliver my thoughts here. So I already saw in some groups people showing frustration because of all of this. And I don't think there's any need for that yet. And by that I mean, we don't know what it is. Because here's the thing is, like, the reason I don't like things like this on the community page, I'll be honest with you, is it's a preview that doesn't preview anything. Like, they didn't come with anything meaningful for us to get excited about, and so you get these wide range of reactions and people being upset and people being, perturbed, and why did I rebase everything? I wish I hadn't, and it's just like, well, we don't know what's coming, so it's too early for all of that. So that's the thing where it's like, I said this multiple times before, specifically during the Forbidden Power buildup, where it's like they have this hype machine, but there's just nothing to get excited about. Like, the idea that they're seeing that the old world is still valid is super awesome, but don't come to us with like, hey, we're thinking about it. Come to us with something to get excited about, like something concrete. So that would be my opinion. Truth be told, like the old world stuff, you know, it was a lot for me to take in, but there's a lot of people who really, really love that. And I'm so happy for you. Like, genuinely, you know, I mean, the only concern I've seen is that it's going to put a big rift between people who like fantasy battles and people who like Age of Sigmar. And that just, the way that they are approaching this is the way of 30K and 40K. Those streams, they don't hurt each other. If you guys know anything about those two games, like they don't steal from each other. They don't impact each other. I don't know. They're just different. They're different experiences. And I think that's really important to remember when we talk about this stuff. It's like it can just give you a different experience. What else? Am I going to cover old world lore now? I don't know. So many people do a great job of it already, like Lore Master Sotek, and there's several other channels that I'd recommend, but maybe, I don't know. Depends on how far they go with it, you know. And that's what I mean when I say, like, I don't really like these kinds of previews where it's not anything, because we don't know what to get excited for. So could it be a full mega relaunch of, you know, they basically make Ninth Age, but you know, Games Workshop sanctioned Ninth Age. Could it be something else? We have no idea, so I don't get myself too excited about it, to be perfectly honest with you. What are some of the big things I wanted to cover? If you prefer Warhammer Fantasy Battles to Age of Sigmar, that's awesome. You are welcome. Here, I mean, there are some places that just push people away because, like, oh, you're being a neckbeard. It's like, no, they just like something over something else. I'm positive about it in terms of, like, I want everyone to have the gaming experience that they are, like, whatever just makes them happy. Like, I would just hate to see people be in this hobby and just be unhappy with it, you know? Go do something you really, really enjoy and you're passionate about. Those are the big thoughts, to be perfectly honest with you. Just making sure everyone is just, like, getting what they want out of the hobby. I like opportunities like this for people who, I'm gonna say it's gonna come off sounding mean, but there's nothing mean behind it. It's an opportunity for people who liked fantasy battles more to put their money where their mouth is. In that, I mean, it's, you know, when you talk about it in business, you can get a bunch of people to say, yeah, if you release this product, I'd buy it. And then you release it and then nobody buys it. Because you can get people who will, you know, give verbal affirmation, but when it comes to pulling out their wallet, you know, it's a different story. Part of that, there's a lot of reasons for that, but ultimately it's just like, you know, if you love fantasy battles, like, please, you know, they're giving us an opportunity to show that we mean it. And the people who really, really love it have, I think, in some sense, a responsibility to show them that they really, really mean it. And I think that's good. That's good for both parties, right? It's good to offer. It's good to show. What else did I want to cover? Yeah, I guess the biggest thing was just making sure everybody feels welcome. You know, it's like if you have a buddy in your group, like I have a friend named Max, who he's been playing Age of Sigmar with me and having a great time. He's a cool guy, wonderful painter, like little hobby hero. But he sent this to me today, and he's just like, I just prefer fantasy battles. It's like, that's awesome. You should be playing that, and they should be supplying you with a way to do that. I think it's a pretty obvious move to capitalize on some of the goodwill and fandom that has been built from those games, like Total War and Vermintide, which are incredible games, by the way. And if you're not playing them, what are you doing? They're super fun. What else? Yeah, and that honestly is pretty much it for my thoughts. And the reason it's pretty simple is because they didn't, like I said, give us a whole lot to work with here. In terms of like raw information, which I just never like. I never like these kinds of announcements. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pull up the chat here because I accidentally clicked away from it. I hate this song. Let me skip it. It's like the one song in their chat music playlist that I don't like. Okay. Now I'm back. All right. As a heads up, we're going to keep this conversation positive. We're going to keep it in line with basically everything else on the channel, which is be positive or go away. That's all. Let's see, Doug, you just get Warhammer Fantasy fans, I think. This is very similar to retail WoW versus classic WoW. Right on. Well, I think, you know, I don't think I understand Fantasy Battle fans as much as I understand just people. People just, they love stuff, you know? And, like, I don't think it was as much, how do I word this? I think that the way people feel about AOS is not just how they feel about AOS, it's also how they feel about the way the old world ended. And that left a lot of people dissatisfied. And so, you know, just being able to approach someone and be like, hey, you know, like, you're upset, and I'm not going to commiserate with you because I don't feel upset, but I will say that your feelings are valid, and if the company offers you a way to enjoy your hobby the way you want, you'd be a fool not to do it. That's a very Doug stance, but life's too short to spend time doing something you don't like. But also in that, you know, I do add that there is a responsibility of people who say they want this product to actually go out and buy it. So don't skip past that. Apathy Kitten, $2. Thank you so much. No, I try to be very, very beginner friendly for sure. None of this works without getting new folks in and excited. 1 second, just grabbing a paint here. Let's see. Lore Master, can I post links here? I don't think YouTube will let you. Ghost Mutton, the only thing I don't get is why announce it when it's so far away. 3 or more years. Yeah, I don't, honestly, that's what I mean, where it's like, my initial reaction was negative, but not because of anything to do with Warhammer Fantasy Battles. It was negative because I was like, what am I supposed to do with this? Like now, like this doesn't change anything for me. Like, are they expecting people to like sit and wait for 3 years to buy stuff? Cause like this unknown thing is one day coming. I don't understand. You know, and it would be one thing if they kind of framed it as like a, hey everybody, we've been listening to what you want and we decided to start a team on this. Like that would be a cool announcement. Like, hey, we're responding to the things that you love, you know, in a very matter-of-fact way. Here's the logo, but now the team that we have assigned to this is going to be spending the next couple years working. Like that is a very different response than like, don't you guys miss the old world? And the internet's like screaming. It's like, of course we do. And like, us too. Well, why'd you get rid of it? That's why we've decided to make a logo. You know what I mean? I don't get it. So I don't understand a lot of their decisions, to be perfectly honest with you, when it comes to specifically their marketing team. But like I said, you know, I'm happy. I don't get it. You know, I used that little girl, the meme girl, for the cover art. That's exactly how I feel, where it's just like, this is a cool thing, but like now what? What are our actionables as consumers? You know, you've told us about a product 3+ years in advance, which is something, you know, advance notice for what's coming out is something we've always wanted from GW. But in a way where we can't like get too excited. You know, one thing people have said is like, you know, we're looking at this assuming it is Warhammer Fantasy Battles, but nothing in that article tells you that it's the fantasy battles that you know, remember, and cherish as a memory. Like, it could be a rewriting of the rules. It could be War Master, so that you can actually have a direct relation to what you play in Total War Warhammer, which is one of the impetuses most likely for this. And for the record, if War Master came back, I would pretty much play War Master and Warcry a lot. Like a lot. Because I feel like War Master really represents those huge battles that I want to represent. But yeah, I don't know. So I'm going to do is I'm going to check out the only response I can have to something that far from release is, okay, exactly, yes, exactly right. You're just like, huh, cool. Let's see. I read a lot of comments. I'm only play if it looks like it'd want to. I also don't understand. There, you know, and this is the thing. Like, because it's so vague, because it's so far out, I do honestly, and this is, I'm not a negative person, y'all, hopefully, if you're new. Hi, I'm Doug, I'm very positive. My only thing is that when you set something so far out in advance with no details given about even the general direction of where they're going, is the idea of people are now building up in their minds this nostalgia factor for what was, when it's like, that's not what they promised you. In fact, they promised you nothing, but because they came to the table with no information, we as consumers are left to build up expectations in our head. And that's, and that is actually a bummer, because then it's going to get launched and people are going to have problems with it, right? This isn't the Warhammer I remember. You're just, now you're just trying to profit off of the great lore that there was before, and sell me more stuff. And then another note on that is, like, think about if they are considering this like 30K. 30K is fantastic if you're a narrative gamer and you love getting into the nitty gritty of stuff. And I will say it's probably a fun game. Like I've played Horus Heresy before, but it's not supported in the same way that 40K is. Their models are unbelievably expensive. Like, you know, so it's something to consider. It depends, but, you know, all that depends on, are they even going to release models? Are they going to have, is it going to be just a rule set only in a very expensive book that you have to buy? Can't imagine that, because I don't see them making a ton of money back if they're going to have a full team of people being paid for 3+ years on it. Yeah, I don't know. And that's the thing where it's like, okay, well, we know 3 years is kind of like their marker for how long it takes to build or design and push out models, basically. So, you know, and that's what gives me hope for, like, War Master stuff, where it's like, maybe they're doing it in a way that will allow the old world to live through a different kind of combat system, which I would be excited about. But people who are online right now who are just like, yes, I don't have to rebase my, you know, fill in the blank army, they would not be happy at all. Let's see, Lore Master, what do you think about the small reveal that we're about to start Hish? And hopefully, yeah, so I'm sorry, I kind of skipped that. So the last line of this preview is, and what's next then for Age of Sigmar? There are some huge, and may I say giant, plans for the Mortal Realms. For now, we have to keep it Hish, and Hish is spelled like the realm Hish. I'm super excited about that. I would not be surprised if the fabled high elf, you know, fill-ins come maybe February, something like that. Just, you know, where it's like on the horizon, enough time to get some previews out. The fact that they even just brought it up is huge, because they have largely just not even mentioned Hish like at all. So yeah. Let's see. Pretty surprised from a business split product point of view. Would have preferred Age of Myth as a 30K equivalent. Honestly, Mark, I completely agree. I think there was enough mention of what's going on in the Age of Myth that many books and epic battles could have been written. Like, because all we know about the Age of Myth is that everything was bigger, badder, and more awesome, right? Because civilization was at its zenith. And then how that gets torn apart by the Age of Chaos, like, oh my gosh, that just sounds so cool. But that's my opinion. And apparently yours as well. So it just surprises me that that's the route they went. But I get why they, I understand from a business perspective why they did, because they already have all this established stuff. They don't have to write a Horus Heresy 52 book series, they already have it. It's just any old world book is part of that now, which is an interesting concept, But when they did the work, they'd already paid the writers and all that kind of stuff. Why not? The only thing that I would offer to people, and this is like my most sincere thing, if you are excited about this announcement, first of all, good, you should be. That's awesome. Whatever make it float your boat, do it with all your might. The only thing that I would add is that there are many, very, we'll say, negative and not community-driven content creators for fantasy battles, just like there are for AOS. And just be careful who you listen to. You got 3 years of people putting on expectations and theories and fear-mongering, opportunities. Just be careful who you listen to. And I say that because I deeply care about everyone enjoying their hobby. So that is my sincere takeaway. Because GW didn't give us anything actionable, that is my actionable to you, is just be mindful of who you listen to. Go to the people who remind you why you love what you love. And I will cover it. That's the thing, is like, I fully 100%, like if it is a full launch of a new game set in the old world with its spirit, I don't think it's gonna be the fantasy we know and from the past. But at the same time, I have no reason to think that. Just like nobody else has a reason to think that it is. So just keep that in mind. I am going to talk about it. Like, it's not, I don't know. I didn't start this channel out of hatred for fantasy battles or anything like that. I started it because I like Age of Sigmar, nobody else was talking about it. Not anything to do with fantasy battles. And so I have no fear about bringing it in, I want to learn more about it. I want to hang out and do stuff with Lore Master Sotek, which I still need to reach out to you and reschedule a time to hang out and do a paint session or whatever like that. So just remember, always be positive, do what you love. Let's see. I'm going to read some comments. You guys are chatting it up, and that's awesome. Listen to positive people for a positive hobby. Exactly. Daniel, question. Thoughts on Seraphon rumor? I don't follow any rumor sites or folks, so I don't know of any. If there's a thought on it, I don't have it. I want them to get a book next, to be honest with you, more than anything else. Or any other faction, I mean. That's all I can add to that. Let's see. I absolutely love Age of Sigmar, and it's going to stick around now. I just missed the fact that we didn't get to see any of the epic kingdoms of Clockwork Soldiers and the Fire Mages. Oh, yeah, with the Age of Myth stuff. Yeah. Yep. Let's see. A lot of folks only remember the start of it, and that's, that was 100% their fault. Like GW, like I get called a shill quite a bit, mostly by my friends who joke around with me, but I do get accused of being, over positive, but I've always been very emphatic on the fact that, like, it was one of the worst product releases ever, and that's why, like, if you guys have noticed, particularly on the End Times video and the video called The Story Thus Far, there are people who love fantasy battles that comment and are just like, thank you for making this video to explain what happened. I was gone for a while. This just doesn't sound like it's for me. And I always try to be hyper positive, kind of be an ambassador at that point and just be like, thank you for taking the time to watch. I know this was a really rough transition. It was very cool of you to watch my video. Go do whatever you like. You know what I mean? And I can't offer much more outside of that because I don't know anything about Ninth Age or Kings of War or anything like that. But, you know, you never burn bridges. It's never worth it. You just say, hey, thanks for hanging out, watching this thing that I did. And that End Times video is so full of errors because I don't know the old world that, you know, if you take the time to watch it and then don't spend 40 minutes correcting me on things that I got wrong, yeah, hey, thanks. There's a lot of things wrong in that video. I got continents wrong. Let's see. So many product lines released while KO sits on the shelves. Well, the good news is that this isn't getting released for about 3 years. Cameron says circle plus square equals hexagon. Come on, Games Workshop. I love it. Let's see. If I missed a statement that you want me to chat about, either at me or put question in all caps so I can see it. And I'll go ahead and answer it. So, again, the comments are just flooding in so fast that I can't read them all as they pour in. Let's see. What's my next color? I need Gorgrunta Brown. There we go. Yeah, so I'll pause here and let you guys re-ask questions if I missed them. But I'm painting up my beasts from the Warcry set. And I'm just doing contrast on them. Honestly, I don't plan to use a ton of them. But for these guys, I'm doing kind of like a blood vulture look. So it goes from a brown into a red tipped wing, fiery red with a brown body. And then for the Furies, it's just kind of like a wash with Seraphim Sepia type thing. Little like bone devils. So bone colored devils. So yeah, Kevin. Question, what the heck was Fantasy Battles? Fantasy Battles, Games Workshop had a game they started back, my gosh, I think it was before 40K, back in the 80s, someone correct me if I'm wrong. But basically, it was a game, if you've ever seen the video game Warhammer Total War, it's that, but tabletop version, where you're doing like the big ranks and blocks of troops, and you're kind of reenacting, think of like medieval style combat where, you know, they signaled things with flags because they didn't have walkie-talkies, and big blocks of troops would, like, you know, wheel this way and crash into an enemy flank and that kind of stuff. And it was cool. It was a really cool game. Towards the end, it required so many models that the barrier to entry kept getting higher and higher. Like, it was a difficult, unwieldy system, but it was set in like an alternate Earth. Loosely. I mean, the continents weren't all the same, but they were pretty much, there were some dead ringers and then some that were like, yeah, all the races that we know kind of derive from there. It was very much Tolkien-esque, if you understand, if you know what I mean, where it's like the author, J.R.R. Tolkien, his kind of thing where it's like this Middle Ages trapped, you know, world where you have dwarves and humans, and they all, you know, the most advanced thing is like a crossbow, maybe some gunpowder, that kind of stuff. Yeah. I probably just butchered it. Lore Master Sotek did a good job, but for being on the fly, that's how I would describe Fantasy Battles to somebody. Now, what they did was then the game got unwieldy, and for a variety of business decisions, they decided we need to move this along, and so they shut down that game with a campaign series called the End Times, and then relaunched with the same models initially, Age of Sigmar, which became a smaller game in terms of the number of models required to play. Some armies are still horde-based, and basically ever since they did that in 2015, it's been a slow process of them getting books made for every single faction in there, while also releasing new armies. So that, you know, Fantasy Battles is the progenitor of Sigmar, Age of Sigmar. Sigmar was one of the gods or deities back in the old world, kind of thing. But yeah, huge news. And that's the thing, is like when Age of Sigmar launched, many people preferred the Fantasy Battles lore in that setting more, the more grounded, traditional fantasy, whereas other people, like myself included, prefer the more heroic scale of just like, one-man wrecking crews and lightning demigods and kind of a Norse, mythology theme going on. And neither of those groups are wrong or correct. It's just a preference. Yeah. Nathan, would love to see you and Lore Master Psych do some collabs. I've been told that before, and I keep spacing. That's the problem. He works for himself as his own man, and I have to like schedule things, but I'm really bad at doing that. At the end of the day, we're just here to have a good time and some fun. Exactly. Yeah, in our Discord, someone reached out to me. I was like, hey, can you kind of like drop the hammer on, or can you open a new like Discord like subgroup for Fantasy Battles with this announcement, and so we can chat about it without the AOS people kind of getting upset. And I was like, in my head I was like, no, I'm not gonna. You don't need to do that. You don't need to divide anybody yet. That seems silly at this point. Nothing to divide over. Not nearly as big as the blood feud that is the Mordheim versus Warcry players. That's a joke, 100%. I actually had a great discussion with some friends about that, about like what if it was Mordheim kind of things, like what would that mean for Warcry? Because I'm very into Warcry, sitting here as I paint it up. Question, just joined. Have we discussed this being a Forge World thing yet? No, we haven't. And that could be an interesting idea. Because if I'm not mistaken, someone correct me, is 30K, with the exception of like the plastic kits, the big box sets that come out, it's all Forge World driven, right? I'm asking a question, I'm not making a statement, so just be very aware of that, but yes, 30K is pretty much exclusively Forge World. Thank you. Yeah, so I'd be fine with that. Again, like, if they're treating it like it's, hey, this is a side thing we can do to, first of all, appease fans, but more importantly, their business, capitalize on the success of the intellectual property that is Warhammer Old World and Total War and all that kind of stuff. I think they'd be fools not to do something with Fantasy Battles. Thought that for a while, with all the success that Total War has had. But at the same time, I don't know if they really want it to be one of their main jams, right? As far as games go, so having it be Forge World would be a dual-edged sword, because on one hand, it exists and it gets support, but Forge World is its own beast when it comes to rules balance and army support and all that stuff. So, again, I can't emphasize enough, I just don't think it's going to be what people, the fantasy fans who got really, really excited. And that means people who also actively play Age of Sigmar, who just happen to like Fantasy Battles more. I just don't see it being the same thing, because I think that there's no money in that, and that sounds very like, they are a business, but spending 3 years to pay full salaries to come up with a rule book doesn't jive. So that's why, honestly, I'm like, well, is it going to be like a War Master thing where now we have to buy smaller, like the little different scale models? I'm like, I'm down for that. I think that would be rad as heck. Yeah, I don't know. Question, do you think having campaign books set in different realms or pocket planes like Mordheim would satisfy people? It would satisfy me. I can't talk about anybody else, but I would love if they were just like, honestly, what I want more than anything is just like some campaign supplement of just like, hey everybody, we're going to Gur, right? And we're just gonna like kick the crap out of monsters in Gur. That would be my jam, and they don't have to focus on it like for an entire year, like they're doing with Malign Portents or Sorcery, whatever we're doing. Or Forbidden Power is kind of, I guess, with the Epic we're in now. But yeah, I think that would be so cool. I mean, if it was just like, hey, here's 3-4 books with some rules and some lore and some cool art, which I know isn't a monumental amount of work. Still, but like just doing that instead of like changing the gears of the entire game, I think would be cool. It could still be a story under the greater Soul Wars, fight. Let's see. The thing that makes the old world different to Horus Heresy is that you're not just focusing on different flavors of Marines, so you can't put out a single plastic kit. Oh yeah. I mean, it's vastly different. I think we can, if they have decided that that's how they view the old world in terms of Age of Sigmar, we can draw some conclusions, but it kind of falls apart when it comes to gameplay for that exact reason. And also that, like I said, I just think they're gonna want you to buy something besides a $40 rule book, because not in a greedy way, just otherwise it doesn't warrant the existence of this team for 3 years of salaries. So I don't know. The hell, this is about the old world. There was okay, if you're just tuning in, there was a Warhammer community article that you should go read right now, because we already read it on there. But yeah, the apparently in the next 2 to 3+ years, there's going to be something with the old world? Question mark. Well, Warhammer used way more models. Oh yeah, I mean, there's a lot of differences in terms of the variety of factions, how they, in terms of like what supplements you would need to cover them all, because, with the way that, Horus Heresy worked, like, you could paint your Marines as Blood Angels and play them before the actual Blood Angels book dropped, right? You kind of had to hang in there and be patient, but like, if you don't have a rule book for Skaven, you can't use the Empire book, right? It's just, they're so radically different. Could just be a way to buy more. Well, yeah, I think at the end of the day, this whole thing is about making money. I mean, they're a company. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just a matter of how that takes its form, right? Is it going to be old models that are like, all of a sudden, these high elves that I had on my shelf that I never took off square bases are valid? Well, that's an interesting concept because they don't have to buy anything. Or are they going to change the nature of the game to where now I do? Change it, kind of like how... What's a good example? Like Epic to Titanicus, right? Where the scale is different, the function of the stuff is a little bit different in terms of like, it's just robots. You're not using your Epic scale, anything else, and your Titans that you used to have are way too small now. Like how big of a difference it'll be in order for you to buy things. That's, yeah. Let's see. Are they just retroactively supporting? Yes. Well, sort of. Again, if you read the article, we don't actually know what they're thinking. All they literally just says, we made a logo. And I think my favorite conspiracy theory that I just came up with is they don't actually know what they want it to be, and they're just like sitting around there being like, what do people on the internet seem the most excited about now that we dropped this sweet looking logo? Let's see. As long as it doesn't take away from new models for AOS, I don't think it will. That's a thing where, like, if they are perceiving this as a product release and game type as Horus Heresy is to fantasy battles, you know, like I said, Forge World, they do their own thing. They are a entirely separate release line. 40k and them don't clash over time and releases. Let's see. Question: me and my friend got into AOS about 15 years out. Got into AOS after 15 years out of the hobby. We are having a blast. We managed to buy an original AOS 2 starter set band. Follows. Oh, brand new follows. Okay, right on. Let's see. Stormcast won't be used in the old world. Yeah. I remember there was a really fun time when AOS first dropped, and I thought it was fun, just like thought experiment wise, of a bunch of content creators trying to come up with alternate ways that Age of Sigmar, or like the game that we know as, and things could have been rebooted gameplay wise without having to actually blow up the old world. Like, you know, what if the realm gates just popped open and Stormcast, you know, came out and stopped Archeon from blowing everything up? And we kind of got the reworld rebuilt from there, kind of thing. Yeah, it's interesting ideas. I thought that was a time for thought experiment from the people who were more positive than negative, but I don't know. Let's see, multiverse. Yes, the Warhammer cinematic universe, or tabletop universe, whatever you want to call it. Warhammer into the Hammerverse. I like that one. That'd be awesome. For me, like I said before, what I would love to see is a War Master remake, where we can play the rank and file, you know, troop type style. If you guys aren't familiar, War Master, imagine a game of Age of Sigmar just zoomed way out, where your unit of, like, you know, 40 clan rats is like this big, because it's like two little like slots, and it's like representative by like 8mm clan rats, and you have like 40 of those blocks representing like thousands of clan rats just pouring in, you know, which is the kind of stuff that you read in the old world books, that kind of thing, like massive battles that were just like seas of guys as far as the eye can see. That's how they made that possible on tabletop, and I would be super down for that. Question: did you actually play War Master? I did, yeah. When I was in Iowa, so I started this hobby with War Machine and Hordes, and there was a guy there who had War Master and was always trying to get people into it. The thing is that by that time it was already gone, and I mean, I played like 4 games of it. You know, I'm not an expert. I just like the scale, basically, because of the stories you could tell with it. But yeah. See. The only thing I can remember about War Master is the models were terrible and it was immensely unpopular. Yeah, the models were not great because they didn't have the technology at the time to fully see through the vision of what they wanted. They wanted it to be like, okay, what if we were playing fantasy battles but like zoomed out? And it turns out the model making abilities of the time could not handle that, right? You could only type in enhance so much in your computer before the whole thing fell apart, and everything just looked like weird moldy garbage. I will say the trebuchets turned out well, but those are just because they're like straight lines. Neil, no, I did not. Question: are we going through the narrative campaign books? What do you think we need to get a Nightheart army? we finally get up to date with the Soul Wars campaign. What would you think we need to get? A Nighthaunt army. I don't think you need to get anything. I mean, if you get Lady Ollander the model, she's kind of like the last big thing that they had released. Like in terms of narrative, like her release and her fighting at the Siege of Lethis, right? The Forbidden Power lore, which you can go watch. Was kind of the last thing I think the Nighthaunts have been a part of. Well, it's like one of the last things that's happened. Oh crap, my neighbor's dogs are going nuts over there. Imagine War Master, but with better sculpting tech. I think they could now. You know, I think they could realize it. But again, I'm not saying that War Master is what it is. What I'm just saying is that I think there has to be some component outside of just a rules book that's going to drive some kind of sales. And so I'm just spitballing things that they could have you buy that are in the spirit of Warhammer, the old world stuff, but would require you to go out and buy things. And changing the scale of the game is definitely one that you could do that with. Again, I just want to be clear. I'm not saying it's War Master. I'm just saying if there are any other theories that people have of like ways to get you to go out and buy other stuff. Let's see. Specialist games is all they're doing lately. I don't know. You're crazy, dude. I'm drowning in battle tomes for AOS, and 40K's got, what is it, like the Blood of the Phoenix or whatever. I don't know what it's called. Their campaign thing going on. We're drowning in main game stuff. I'm ready for Specialist. I'm ready to like spend 2 weeks looking at that like one Slaves to Darkness monster that I like. I guess there was more than one. There was a bunch, yeah. Sorry, I had to think about that for a second, but yeah. There's so much going on right now. Now, not all of it might interest everybody, which is why they shotgun out releases like that, so that not a dollar is missed, but 40K is doing Psychic Awakening. Thank you, that's what it's called. Which, you know, I'm surprised I'm not more tempted by, to be honest with you. I've been so into the idea of playing Warcry. I'm not going to lie to you. Hey, Hugh. Okay. Just got that done. Now we're going to do the leg wraps. Let's see, we need... Where's the snake bite loader? Here we go. $40K is booming right now. Happily drowning. Kill Team, Warcry, Necromunda, Titanicus. Yeah, but I think that they've had far less releases in terms of amount of support than what's going on with the main games right now. Again, it's all opinion based. Because it's one of those things that, like, honestly, I forgot that so much has come out for 40K because it just, my brain just tunes it out, right? I have to. Otherwise, I'll go insane with all the stuff that's pouring out of GW. Got to tune some of it out. The nice thing is, once I can, as of right now, play full games of Warcry because I have the trains. But with this done, I can do literally everything, because the only thing I'm missing is the beasts to be able to play those cards when they come up. As of right now, I'm just like, and we'll draw another twist card, but I want to play with the monsters. Let's see, in addition to the Siege of Terra books, which are a major hit, are they good? That's awesome. I'm really glad. I was so worried that they were going to be like Game of Thronesy in the sense of like, we waited all these years for this? Although I just have this sincere hope that they end the Siege of Terra series on the same note that they ended Fantasy Battles. Not on the sense of like changing the game at all, but I just mean like it was a time of ending, but also a time of beginning. Just the same line of just like everyone's like, Barf. Sam says, I kind of feel it's overload and overwhelming. Yep, I agree. It's a tough one. It's a real tough one. Because there's a lot of, if anyone is an accountant or a marketing person, you'll know there's a lot of work that goes into knowing how effective a product release is in terms of volume and intensity and marketing and all that kind of, how you market those things and build hype. And so I've heard several folks from both communities, because I listen to the 40K podcast quite a bit, mainly because it's kind of a nice arm's reach. I don't get upset about stuff because I don't care. Where they're also feeling overwhelmed. I was like, well, that's not super good. The sheer number of AOS battle tomes released this year is overwhelming, but like everything else, people need to get accustomed. People get accustomed and then entitled in life. I absolutely agree, yeah, because, well, I'm not a huge fan of the word entitled, but I do agree that we get very... Our demands become less and less satiated, for sure. We get used to the constant drip, right? The dopamine of checking Warhammer community every morning. Where is my Magel's purple? Here we go. Game of Thrones hurt me so bad. I don't watch Game of Thrones. Honestly, I've been lucky to dodge, like, all of my various fandoms have had, like, never had a Game of Thrones moment. I've always kind of been on the outside looking in, like, even Warhammer, right? Like, when the old world went down in flames, like, I had been playing for, like, 8 months. I was just, like, watching the internet melt down, and I was just like, wonder what they're upset about. Thought this would be a cool thing. And then, obviously I have now grown to realize how deep the old world was and why people have such a deep appreciation for it. But at the time, I was just like, why does everybody seem mad? Which my wife does that too, because I'll be like, all the nerds are raging today. She's just like so detached from anything. She's like, why? Kind of seems like everyone should just like what they do, and if they don't like the hobby anymore, they should just do something else. It's like, yeah, but also, no, you're wrong. Let's see. I watched the first season of Game of Thrones, was not interested at all, so I was like, meh. And to be honest with you, AOS is the only fantasy setting that I actually kind of like. Actually, that's not true. I like the old world. I just don't have the time to go invest, in what was written so long ago when the floodgates are open now. So I do like the old world. I just, I don't like Tolkien. I don't like, what else? What's everyone so mad about? With Lord of the Rings? Or not Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones? I have no idea. As far as fantasy battles, nobody in this chat's mad. It's more, honestly, it's more just like this big people being mad on past events. I don't know. I just I don't know. I'm just more confused, honestly, more than anything. I'm just like why? Why share it if you have nothing to show? Pics or it didn't happen, GW. That's what Doug says. You show me a picture of a model ranked up on a square base. Trying to think what's going on else in the hobby. I'm cranking through my I'll wait for you guys to ask more questions if you have any, but I'm cranking through the to-do list that I had so I can go out and get more stuff because I'm excited. I've been a fairly good hobbyist when it comes to, so if you didn't see on put up a post on social media, my Facebook and Instagram, of a big epic long to-do list. And basically, it's not that epic, but compared to some people. But basically, I said I'm not going to buy any more stuff until I finish off this list with a few caveats. Because, for example, like I've been waiting for some of the Bone Splitter heroes to come back in stock because they've been out for forever. So I bought those so I wouldn't have to wait, another month or so, kind of thing. Those kinds of purchases where it's more spur of the moment, you have to get in there when you can. But yeah, beyond that, I've been pretty good. Like, between everything on that list has to either be done and painted or sold, and there's no in between. So I got my stuff up on eBay if you guys are curious. You can go check out. I think my channel is just called 2+ Stuff, like on eBay's. But yeah, got some Tau, got some Death Guard, got some books, got some all kinds of stuff up there. So, but yeah, I'll get that cleared out, and I'm going to use the funds to completely redo my office. So, got some cool stuff planned where I'm going to buy like one of those like L-shaped desks, have it in the corner. And so in the future, instead of it being a upward cam facing my face and the downward cam like you see now, one side of the L desk is going to be me talking to you right face to face. The other side is going to be the downward cam permanently set up, but there's going to be a small light box with a third camera. So as I'm painting stuff, I can then hold it in that light box and you can see in detail what I'm doing. And so I'm actually very excited about that. And that way that'll open me up to do like, painting tutorial streams and that kind of stuff where I can show off in real time what things look like. Because right now this camera setup has a lot of trouble focusing on details and that kind of stuff. So it's hard when someone's like, hold up your model and let me see the paint scheme. I kind of can't. So let's see. Question from Neo. Question: Vandus Hammerhand or Lord Arcanum on Griff Charger as a general for my Stormcast army? If you don't need anything specific to be battle line, because like the Arcanum would make Sequitors battle line. If you don't need anything to be battle line, I would say model wise, my favorite of the two is Vandus, because Vandus Hammerhand or Lord Arcanum on Griff Charger. Yeah, those are two super different kits. Honestly, I think Vandus is awesome. he can be a little beast sometimes. When he hits. That's the big caveat. Oh, wait. No, I misread the first time. So, Lord Arcanum, Griff Charger. Okay, yeah. I don't know why the second time I read your question, I thought I messed up, and I thought you like a Lord Aqualor, like the other dude, like the generic hero on a Griff Charger. Oh, I was messed up. But no, I stand by that. Question: that to-do list in rough shape. Use toilet paper on the list. Was it used as toilet paper? No. Let's see. It is partially because I did not realize how thinned out this brand of wood glue that I got was, and I was building those MDF pieces of terrain, and yeah, it made some pretty awesome streak marks as I was letting it dry. And yes, it is in rough shape. At first I was like, I should copy it over, and I'm like, no. I want this to be, this is like the portrait of Dorian Gray, right? But it's in reverse, where this is going to get more mangled and covered in blood stains and destroyed. And then my personal soul will become better and pure because I will have gotten all of my backlog done, and I will not buy new models until my old ones are painted. I guess the reverse Dorian Gray is just real life, but you know what I mean. So I got, the big thing I've hit the wall on is that I was really, really in the zone about painting orcs for quite a while, for like 3 or 4 weeks, cranked out a ton, and then that dry kind of welled up, and now I have what, 55 orcs to paint, 15 Ard boys, 20 arrow boys, 20 savage orcs, and a few more heroes to paint. And I'm just like, nah, don't want to paint those. But today I'll finish off the Warcry beasts right here. So yeah, and then I'll go back to doing the gits. Can't give Vandus a command trait. That is true. I've just never been a fan of the Lord Arcanum. Also understand, I am not a necessarily a guy to ask for tactical advice. Hugh says, Jack, are you happy about the news of the old world coming back? And before he answers, I'm going to take a wild guess while not looking at my screen. We don't have enough information yet to get excited about anything. Question: If you were going to get into a new old world game, which army would you choose based solely? Oh, it's like if Fantasy Battles relaunched as it previously was, what army would I choose? Honestly, I want my High Elves back. My High Elves were awesome. That was what I started with the Island of Blood set back in the day. I like them quite a bit. I like the kind of elite nature. I would say either them or ogres, the ogre kingdoms. You know, for the elite model count thing and the impact hits and being a big old monstrous dude. That or a wild card would be, for me, Chaos. Warriors of Chaos, I should say. The old, what Slaves of Darkness is now. Good call. So sad to see that there's basically none of them left. Yeah, but I retain hope for whatever is going to happen with Hish, based on the hope that we're getting something for Hish here pretty soon. Sorry, I'm listening to my wife sing in the other room, and I love it. She's the best. But yeah, so High Elves would be my choice, absolutely and completely. And not because, like I said, I didn't play them very long. I didn't have a huge emotional attachment, but I did read the Sundering series. Was pretty much the only old world lore that I read, and I liked it. I liked this idea of the Civil War, which I don't feel like we have any kind of real equivalent to in AOS, of like, you know, all the different factions are pretty much divided, but while a lot of their history like bumps up against each other, they don't like intermingle in the way that like Dark Elves and High Elves did, right? Where they're like cut from the same cord, and there's this whole story about how they split and why the world is the way it is now because of it, kind of thing. So I don't know. I thought that was a cool idea. Do Warcry player generally mind about proxying other faction cards, considering you may not be able to get them now? I mean, my folks that I play against wouldn't. Just ask your opponent, especially if it's a matter of the model's not available. Like, I think most people are pretty reasonable. I can't obviously speak for every Warcry player in the world, but I have yet to meet one that's like, actually, you can't do that. Did you run Teclis, Tyrion, Ilario? Oh, did I run any of the heroes? Let's see. I liked Teclis's lore, but I didn't actually run him. My big thing that I loved more than anything was I just loved their magic. I loved their magic, but even at the time, back when I first started playing, because I came from War Machine, where you're constantly locked into playing a named character, I was really excited to play a game where you didn't have to take a named character, right? All of the leaders for War Machine and Hordes are named characters. So I always took a mage on a fire dragon. And I mean, every single game that I played with him, he got punked round one. Because one of the downsides of Warhammer Fantasy Battles back in the day was that turns out 2 cannons can kill pretty much anything in the game. And you know what cannons love is giant flame dragons coming at them. So, they didn't last very long. Which I think, side note, brings up an interesting point when it comes to people being so excited about The old world stuff is like, I think people are going to slowly remember why the old world wasn't maybe as idyllic as they remember, but that's more of a personal opinion than anything else. Jack, question: are you excited for the tournament tomorrow? I am. I'm getting excited. I need to work a little bit more tonight and get my list ready and packing everything up. But I'll be honest, I wouldn't have agreed to go to the next tournament if I knew that at the time it was out in Bremerton. If I'm honest with you, it's like an island for those of you who don't know my local area, where it's just a little bit inconvenient. But last month we had our event. I had to help a friend move, and it was more important getting them out of a bad situation. So I was like, and that one was like really convenient. I was down in Tacoma, so I was like, oh man, I had to pass up on that one. And I promised I'd go to the next one. Hey friends, hey Sean. Super dramatic music is going. It is super dramatic. Let's move on from this. This is supposed to be their calm soundtrack, and it's just like the Fight Club crescendo. I love it. Oh wait, actually I opened up the wrong thing. My video editing software and my live streaming service, their icons look almost identical, so I'm constantly hitting the wrong button. Let's see. Donald, roughly how many more Cities of Sigmar and Maw Tribes video you got cooking up? I have, for sure, at least one more Maw Tribes video. And as far as Cities of Sigmar goes, I think I have 4 or 5. I just got so bogged down. When I started that whole series, I had none of us had any idea that they were about to drop 2 more battle tomes immediately afterwards, and so I outlined plans for several videos. But honestly, like I have to go wherever I'm excited to keep motivated, and so yeah, I did move over to Maw Tribes, and then the next thing I'm going to do is focus on Ossiarch Bone Reapers because they're brand stinking new. I think I need to take a break from the lore weeks because I'm getting a little burnt out. Come up with a more regular content schedule to keep things, moving and stable, and so I can keep up with them. This last month, honestly, like I think GW was just like, hey, you know that guy Doug Griggs who we made a Warhammer hero? Yeah, screw that guy. And then they were just like giving me more than I could ever possibly do. That's my own interpretation in my brain as I lay in bed trying to figure out how I'm going to make all these videos without losing my mind. So I think at least for the next week, I'm going to go down to doing 2 to 3 lore videos instead of like doing the everyday thing, just so I can keep momentum going and not lose my sanity. Looking forward to the Bone Reapers lore. Yeah, me too. It's honestly, it's one of those things where like I was talking to my patrons or on Patreon, well, through the Discord, and I was like, guys, I'm really sorry. Like I'm just getting fried from all these things, and they're like, oh, it's totally cool. And then someone was like, as long as it's not because like you think the book's dumb and you just don't want to read it, because that's honestly kind of the reason. I never got into the Beastclaw Raider book when it was on its own. I like it more now in the Maw Tribes, but I was like, no, it's hard to be like, no. The problem is I think this book is rad as all get out. and I don't want to do, I don't want to like just shimmy through it really, really quickly. And then it's like, no, the Bone Reapers book is super cool. Really do like it. Just I want to give it some time to digest in my brain. Which is funny. I think that's really cool that like, because it's not just me, it's also the Warhammer Weekly guys who I really like, where it's just like, everybody stop. Can we all acknowledge this book is like maybe about 10,000% different than any other battle tome? Why don't we just like think about it for a bit? Like they took like, I think it's like 1 on 3 weeks now, where they haven't chatted about Bone Reapers really at all. I'm just like, thank you. Everybody needs time to kind of catch up. Let's see. These guys are coming along. I like my little blood vultures. And basically at the end, I'm going to go through with a thin wash of Nuln Oil, because the thing with contrast is there tends to be, because I have to brush more carefully, there's like little spots where the white still shows through from the Gracier. So just covering those up actually makes it really, really nice. I need to get my first guy. Here he is. Use some Nuln Oil on him. I'm just right here. Neil, your lore videos are tipped me over the edge back into the hobby. Oh, thank you so much. It's very kind of you. That is very... It's always humbling to hear when someone's just like, hey, you got me excited for this thing. It's like, aw. I don't care what it is, but like in terms of like, what I get people excited for, just the idea that people are passionate about something in life. It's like, yeah. Thoughts by thoughts. Sean Blake, my wife finally pulled the trigger on her starting army. What's she going with, buddy? Okay, so let's go on to the next stage of these dudes. So I'm trying something kind of new with these guys, for me, painting-wise. And that is, Shu from Rerolling 1 showed me a video of a guy who basically, like, starts a model's paint colors really, really high. Like, these guys just have a Seraphim Sepia wash over white. And then goes back over and basically, like, undershades everything. So, like, darkens everything on the bottom side of the model. And it's supposed to just provide like a natural shadow kind of thing. I can't remember what he called it, sketch art, something like that. I don't know anything about painting, like real painting. But so I'm trying that right now. See how it goes. I did a test model, turned out pretty well. Value sketching, thank you. Hugh, what are your thoughts on Warhammer Fantasy Battles coming back? Rewind the video and go start from the beginning. I already went through that. No, it's fine. I don't have any problem with it at all. Glad to see more people getting what they like. And just want people to be aware that it's probably not going to be what they envision it will be. That's the truth of it. How similar do you think the old world will be to the 30k concept? Well, they said... in their little preview thing that like the old world, I mean, at least in some sense they are viewing it as the super past history that people forget about of, that's what the 30k is, right? It's all like myth kind of thing in 40k. And the idea is that's what the fantasy world or fantasy battles world was for AOS. So anyway, as far as like lore-wise, I think they've made it very clear that's what they think it is. As far as how they're going to handle that, like business-wise, if it's going to get the same level of support that 30k does, that's super different. I have no idea. Let's see. Really hope revisiting the old world means they'll explore more of the world that didn't get to expand before, like Cathay and Albion. Right on. Corey Bragg, I think we're all missing the big issue of the day here. Who else picked up the new Pokemon? I did not. I do like Pokemon though. I'm gonna need my Kruki Bamboozle when I get home. Let's see. Personally, wish they'd concentrate on this wide palette of AOS. I think they will. You know, I think saying with the company, you know, it's growing. It just is. It's becoming one of the best employers in the UK, and the idea that like they can't, you know, a good company is always thinking a few steps ahead. And so saying, diverting some resources to being like, hey, here's a way we can potentially grow. You know, again, someone could look at that and be like, what do you mean? It's the old world. They're going backwards. It's like, it's not though. There's going to be something that you have to buy other than a rule book. Otherwise it doesn't make sense. That's what I'm saying. I really do think there's going to be something else to it. Whether it's a different scale game or what, I have no idea. I need to throw some Gorgonta fur on these little beards. Actually, we'll do the faces first. Let's see. I'd laugh if the game was a different scale. I wouldn't be surprised. Would not be surprised. Regardless of scale and that kind of stuff, I do think it is not going to be the old world that some folks are hoping it will be. And I mean that sincerely. I know that's not like a fear-mongering thing. I think that there just has to be some aspect of it that generates income beyond a rule book, right? So I don't know. I'm not sure what that looks like, but I don't know. Battle Masters. Contrast works amazing on small scale figures, so I'd be down for a 10 to 15 millimeter game. Oh, I've never tried a game that small, but that sounds intriguing. Man, these birds are coming out cooler than I expected. You love it like when a plan just kind of comes together, right? He's like, yes. Warmaster was 10 mil. Yeah. Yeah, it was. It was a tiny little thing. I don't know. I like the idea of that scale more than the actual models, though, and that I think has a lot to do with the technology at the time. I don't know. Let's see. All I know for sure is that there is There's battles to be fought in the all points. And I was just chatting with my buddy Max, who's also doing the Warcry campaign stuff with me over in Monroe. And it's like, yep, let's do it. 110%. Sweet. Oh, okay. What's next? These guys need time to dry before I ruin everything I just did. And we'll start on their wings. Go Wildwood. Just erase Death Master's sketch from Star Overworld. I love it. The only thing I don't want to see is folks in either community of people who are excited for whatever Fantasy Battles becomes in AOS. You know, the same thing we see right now sometimes with people in 40k and versus Age of Sigmar, where it's like the idea that one game is superior over another, and you're just like, come on. Come on. We're playing toy soldiers. Nobody's better. Let's see. Sigmar tells everyone he's one of the lost Primarchs. There you go. What are we doing today? Hey, Spitcha. We are. We were chatting about the community article today that came out regarding Fantasy Battles, the not announcement that it's returning because there's no actual information in the article other than something exists or will exist within 3 years, 3+ years. So we chatted about that for a while, and the whole time I've been painting up the beasts from Warcry because it's the last bit that I need to be able to play every twist card. And I want to be able to like bring thralls and that kind of stuff when I play games. So basically I'm going to do I talked about this the last stream I did when folks helped me out. Just doing some nuts and bolts details when it comes to the Warcry campaign I want to do. I'm going to do an entire campaign for the Untamed Beasts in narrative battle reports, and I was looking at the campaign system, and the only thing I'm not a huge fan of is the fact that I feel like models don't die easily enough. Like, so basically after a battle you roll a 2d6 if a guy fell in that last combat. I don't know, a 2 or 3 they're just dead. But that's so unlikely that I want the warband that comes out on the other end to be super haggard and beat to hell. So what I'm going to do is do that campaign system, but every time you fall, same thing. You roll 2 dice, and on a 2 or a 3, you do go away. But every subsequent time you die, you get a -1 modifier to that roll. So if a guy dies 10 times, right, the first one you get for free, right? Everyone can die once, and then after that, it is it'll stack. So the last death there will be -9. I want it to be brutal. Nothing happened with AOS. They're just, you got everyone go read the community article on the community page. All they did was announce that they announced that they're starting to think about the idea of maybe possibly in 3+ years coming out with a Warhammer Fantasy Battles thing. But they affirmed that AOS will still be around. Pop Burnsy, nothing happened with AOS. It sounds like it's selling really well. GW wants more of your money, though. Absolutely. They'd be a fool not to. They're a business. They got shareholders and junk. Christmas is coming, and they will have it. Is anyone in the chat picking up one of those holiday bundles? I'm just curious, because nothing really stood out to me. We talked about this another stream where it's just like, none of the bundles really grip me this year. Normally it's the time of the year where I can safely assume that I'm going to want to start about 10,000 different armies, but I don't know. None of them stood out to me this year. My wife wants the Night Haunt one. Oh yeah, the Night Haunt one. I think is a killer deal. Like, it's just like an army in a box. I was like, yes, totes. I'm trying to think if we have a Night Haunt player in our group. Like me and the Rerolling Ones guys. I know Brent has some, but I don't think I've ever seen him play. Oh, he played in the skirmish campaign. That's right. Solid Bones seemed so lackluster to myself. Great value, but nothing for me. Yeah. I don't know if they're like lackluster in the sense of like, I don't know. The Gloomspite Gets one was probably the only one that I was even like halfway tempted by, and that one just feels. I feel like I think it was Omniphage in the chat last time. Just it felt very scattered. Like there's just a smattering of everything. I was like, that's a good word for it. It does feel very scattered. Oh, God, these wings are taking forever. Sorry, guys. Question, does anyone else know anything about the Slon kit for Space Dinos? I'm getting one for my brother-in-law. He has 2 of the older battle forces. Good fit. I would think so. There's no way it wouldn't be. Expecting more boxes. Hoping for a Gene Stealer Colt one. That'd be cool. Gene Stealer Colt is pretty cool. I tried painting them for a while, and I got super burnt out. Partially because I got tired of playing them before their codex came out. They just were no stinking fun. I mean, for me personally, it was like, hey, here's worse Imperial Guard. Get stomped. And it was against my buddy Ben, who plays like narrative games. I was like, he's not even trying. Well, he's trying to win, but he's not trying to like power game is what I mean. Although he does play Salamander, so there were lots of flamers, which is kind of like the worst case scenario, I suppose, for a lot of Gene Stealer cult lists. Wish there was a good Rat Ogre kit. Totally agree. Yeah, I will say, it's one of those things. It's hard to complain about the Skaven release in hindsight because of how good that army is in the game. At the same time, when we're looking at like how like the actual release of like model options and how many of those options like actually get used in the game, kind of thing, it really, I don't know. It was a very mixed bag. But the second you complain about it, people are like, "Shut up! Wish my army is that good," you know, that kind of thing. Salamander's so fun to paint. Yeah, I haven't tried one yet, but his are awesome. He takes his time. He's like a model by model kind of guy, and that I can't. Even just with these like 6 Furies I'm painting right now, I'm just like, I couldn't imagine going one by one. Higher than 60% or lower than win 64% is when an army has an issue, in my opinion. I do not pay attention at all to statistics when it comes to the game, because there's no there is no statistic for did you have fun? Yeah, because I lose games and have fun all the time. That doesn't mean Iron Jaws are bad or whatever I'm playing that particular week. Whatever I've bought fully painted and traded away that particular week. A question for the chat. For those of you who did play Fantasy Battles, did they have a Lords of War type thing, like a slot for those like insanely strong pieces? I know 40k has that right now. I wasn't playing Fantasy Battles long enough to like even look at the price tag of those bigger things. let's see, 40%. And let's see. Is it wrong to feel bad about the old world coming back? Like, not because I dislike it, but more because the old world players have been so mean and toxic. No, I don't think that's necessary. I mean, I don't know. No, I mean, honestly, I'm going to be very positive and say no. I think the note that I made earlier, and I'm not sure if you were around when I said it, this is 3 years out, and that's going to be 3 years of speculation and negativity, fear mongering, and people saying like, "Told you, I was right. I got vindicated. They should have never gotten rid of the old." A lot of just crappy people being crappy. So just be very careful who you let into your brain, right? Just be careful who you listen to. If they aren't being positive, stop listening to them. So I don't know. You know, I think my thought is the people who were the most aggressive, probably it burned a bridge with them with GW anyway, so they might not come back. They'll just sit on the sidelines and be feeling self-righteous, honestly. I don't know. Can't say for sure. What I can say is that I will check out whatever they unveil, and we'll cover it. We'll chat about it. I can't fathom another world where they have just another game going on, though. It's so busy already. Especially, honestly, Total War is what fantasy tried to be. If GW wants to do the old world right, partner with new lore. Yeah, that's what I mean, where it's just like... I've said something very similar, where... I was playing with Jack. We were playing Total War Warhammer 2, I think. And it's just like... You know, you could never do this on the table. No one could afford the kind of armies that you can build and play out siege stuff in fantasy Total War. It's just like, you know, it's just... And I don't know. Get to catch you post upstream. A friend of mine who never wanted to get into AOS felt justified on never rebasing, seeing the old world news. Yeah, I mean, that's fine, you know. I am not getting excited about anything because that is the key to happiness. No, because it's the key to not being upset whenever they unveil whatever it is. And like I said, I really think it's going to be something that requires more purchases, so I don't know. Forgot to mention Death Guard, and I have a Death Guard army. Oh my gosh. Once I get this guy done, I'm probably gonna hop off and start recording videos for the week. Answer a possible third system. Maybe you want to clear up the Age of Myth. I don't know. Yeah, I want them to. That'd be really cool. I think the Age of Myth, from what they've talked about, like just in passing references, sounds so cool. But I also don't necessarily see it anytime soon. I don't know. It's tough to gauge how much the capacity they have, like in terms of like raw brain power to make rule sets for things and artists to create, you know, stunning art and scenes and that kind of stuff. So I don't know. All right. Perfect. We are all set. So those need to dry, and I'll touch up the wings a bit when that dries, and then we'll finish up just by basting the turkeys here. And we will knock out another thing on my epic to-do list. So anyway, thanks for hanging out with me, some friends. Go back to the beginning of this video if you want to see any thoughts about, you know, that kind of stuff regarding the announcement. So I will catch you all very, very soon. Have a wonderful week and happy